Hi everybody, this is Jeff Veale, the business guru, coming to you from downtown Manila once again. It's my great pleasure today to welcome an awesome guest. Now, this guest is going to be outstanding. One of my done over 500 podcasts, and this gentleman will end up being in the top 10. He's got a fantastic subject. I'm going to tell you all about that. His name is Alan, with one L, Alan Trevor Stevens. Current role or title, International Profiling and Communications Specialist and creator of the Rapid Trait Profiling System. He'll tell you more about that shortly. Industry, education and training. Comes a little while now, try 30 years plus, and still like me, still learning. Brief description of his business: human pattern recognition helps people who deal with people, and that's all of us, I would hope. I work with business owners, leaders, sales professionals, educators and coaches who are tired of communication, mixed messages, damaged trust, and the conversations that go sideways when the stakes are high. And that's all the time, guys, because your integrity is on the line. I help you remove the guesswork, reduce conflict, and stop repeating the same people problems in different situations. What you achieve is deeper than better communication. Right? We gain clarity, control, and confidence in how you handle people. You build trust faster, make stronger decisions, protect your time, energy, and create relationships that actually work at home and at work. Right? Key achievements of projects, and there's been many. Creator of the Rapid Trait Profiling System, quickly being recognized as the latest and most accurate method of reading people. Right? Key achievements, we've done that. Personal motto of philosophy: the most important thing you will ever learn is, my eyes are going bleary, will ever learn is the next thing you learn after you think you know it all. Never stop learning. I've got to interrupt you there, Alan. What happened? I when I was about 40, I was flying, but I wanted to get better. So I hired 3 business coaches. The first 2, they were paying me within 3 weeks. They were hopeless. The third one, I paid over $20,000. He had a bad bedside manner, and my ego and he clashed all the time. He taught me one thing that I remembered about 10 years later, and I use it today. You don't know what you don't know. That's all I learned. That cost me $20,000 to learn that. Right? Interesting fact about yourself: born to English parents, but was initiated to as an Aboriginal lawman when I turned 50. Pretty interesting. It's my great pleasure to welcome to the stage, on Australia Day indeed, Alan Trevor Stevens. How are you, Alan?
Pretty good, thanks, Jeff. And thanks for the invitation.
You're most welcome. We're glad to have you here. Spread the word. Tell us about your journey and what inspired you to pursue your current career path all those years ago. Where did it all begin?
Well, growing up with my father died when I was 3, so I grew up with my mother and sister. And through that process, didn't have any male role models around me, etc. When I left school, I started working with the Postmaster General's Department at the time, the old PMG. I was working with them in Sydney. Then when I finished my training with them, the day they became Telecom, I came to Newcastle. And at that point, I was put in charge of men who were all older than me. I was 23, and my second in charge was 38.
Wow.
One of the other guys in there had been my senior officer in Sydney. Now I'm in charge of him. So you can imagine the dynamics around that.
Yeah, sure.
So that's when I first of all started looking at things. As I said before, 30 plus years. 30 has been traditionally doing what I'm doing now, but before that was using those skills like body language back in the 70s to be able to understand people and figure out what was going on. In the 80s, got involved with psychometric profiling, Myers-Briggs disc profiling, that sort of thing. Never really happy with it because I always realised that when you ask people questions, they try and second guess what you're asking. So emotions come into it, understanding of the actual words themselves, their interpretations and all that. And in the 90s, did my NLP training. Now, at that point, I took redundancy from Telecom the day it became Telstra, and started my own business. And I was working with a couple of guys who worked with me on my team who now wanted to come out with me. We started a business. I've worked in a lot of different industries in the meantime. And all the way through, I thought, right, I've got to have better ways of reading people. So my first wife decided to leave in the early 90s. And I had 3 sons to raise on my own. So I had to understand all about them. They were 4, 11 and 12. So that was a big issue then, because first of all, it was the men, now it's raising children, my sons. Then I got married just before the year 2000. That didn't last very long. And at that point, my youngest boy had moved back to his mother's. He was about 16 at the time. And he would be fighting with her all the time. And when I'd take him out bush, he'd come back respectful and everything else. And that's when I realized that the relationships I've been trying to build for myself all the way through hadn't really worked because I was focusing on me and buggering up a lot of the relationships I was trying to create. So with this, now I'm trying to make sure that the boys respected their mother because I knew if they didn't respect her, they would have broken relationships when they grew up. So therefore, I had to start focusing on other people. And this is my ex-wife who had told me I wasn't good enough to be a husband. And so that was a challenge in itself. But I realized by putting the focus there, it changed. Now, you mentioned about that, about the Aboriginal side of things. I was decided I'd get back into massage therapy that I've been doing years before. I had terminally ill patients coming to me, some of them reversing their conditions, and I needed some answers. And I met an Aboriginal group. They invited me out bush, and for over a year on weekends, I went out there to learn about their culture. That's where the law came in, LORE, not the LAW, their culture side of things, but also getting answers on what was happening in my massage. Why was it having such an impact on people, especially when I had terminally ill patients reversing their conditions, and I had women who had been sexually abused continually coming back to me for massages because the way I massaged, the respect and everything else I treated them with. After that, I realized that after my second divorce, I needed a better way of reading people. And that was one weekend. I was helping a friend run a spiritual retreat. We were doing a Myers-Briggs type setup where we're doing the dichotomies, getting people into groups, introverts on one side, extroverts on the other, and then all the sensing and all the judging and all that sort of thing, running through the dichotomies. And somebody at the end of the day said to me, "You ever looked at reading faces?" And so I thought, that's pretty cool. So by the time I'd driven back from the retreat, it had been milling on my mind. So I got on the internet. I found Paul Ekman, who did all the research on the little micro expressions, the twitches on the face that give away a person's true emotions. They're as fast as a fifth of a second down to 1/25th of a second. So they happen when something happens around you and you unconsciously respond before your conscious mind steps in. So they can't really be hidden. At the same time, I found a lady who taught facial features, how to recognize somebody's face from the ridges and crevices in their face, how they like to think and process, so their personality. And I realized that if you've got both of those, you need to know, well, once you know your personality and you know the other person's, and you know how to change the way you like to be spoken to match them, you need the words. Also the delivery of those words, the paralanguage, the style in which we talk, and also their responses. So I put those four sciences together and created rapid trait profiling, which is now pushing right ahead. It's virtually made Myers-Briggs and DISC and all those profiles obsolete. There's no self-reporting in it, and all the only tools you need are your eyes and ears, and your language to be able to talk at that level. 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion, and that's been pretty much my journey.
Tell me, what's been the most challenging aspect of your work, and how are you overcoming that?
Well, the most challenging one was really around the fact of getting people to get past the old phrenology. Back in the 60s and 50s and all that, there was a belief that certain bumps on your head would be determine what sort of a character you were. Now, as I used to say to everybody, in those days I used to work under my car. If ever I worked under the car, I guarantee I came out with a few more bumps on my head. It didn't turn me into a serial killer. Yeah, my language might have gone a bit blue and I might have been a bit angry at myself and continually hitting myself on the exhaust pipe or whatever. But I realized that it didn't have anything to do with character. And all the psychologists will always go back. You mentioned facial features, they go back to phrenology. And I go, right, you need to go back to university because we're not talking about the head, we're talking about the face. We're not talking about character, we're talking about personality. Character is what you're thinking about, how you think, why you're thinking about it, etc. But personality is how you think, how you like to process information. So I realized that this system made it just on a standard level. You look at somebody, if they remind you of somebody that's done the wrong thing by you in the past, you're going to have that negative feeling towards them. So we judge people on their appearance. But if you realize that two people look very similar, they'll both process information the same way or similar way, but what they're processing is completely different. The means or the reason behind it. So I realized that this was the most accurate way of reading people and the most respectful way of reading people. Take them out of boxes, and treat them as an individual as they stand in their own right.
Love it. Tell me, an important moment in your career where you believe that you've changed direction, and where did you pivot? Where was that aha moment?
Well, I'd say the biggest pivot for me was, as I said before, going through meeting the Aboriginal group and
Mm.
going from just a material type world, because it was all about me, it was all about what I was going to create, the toys, the cars, all that sort of thing. And then it changed to what was I doing on a world level? As they say, what you do with for yourself dies with you, but what you do for others and for the community isn't always will be eternal. So it's leaving that legacy. And so that's where my journey changed. I started listening to people's stories and getting more involved in their lives, not focusing on mine. Having the respect for somebody who wants to talk, to just hold their space without criticism, without judgment, which is where the Campfire Project came from. So that was that moment when I realized that there was a different way of doing things. My spiritual journey virtually started then, the day pretty much about the time I turned 50. And it's been going that way for not quite, but almost 25 years since.
Tell me, how do you stay motivated as you do and continue to innovate in your field? What's the secret there?
Well, because I build relationships with everybody that I train, the feedback that I get, the record at the moment is I worked with a mother and a son. He had Asperger. He was 6 years old at the time. I profiled him, gave her a report that she took to the school and got the school and the after schools care to use it because neither of them wanted him. They wanted him medicated. Psychologist said he needed carer for the rest of his life. The end result, a year later, he was doing presentations in front of the class. Another year later, they let the psychologist go because they didn't need him anymore. And with the doctor's approval, medication was off the table. Then she reminded me the other day, because he's now 21, because when he was 19, she did another testimonial for me where she said that he was now living in Queensland, a completely different state to where he was living in New South Wales, with his own place, got a girlfriend, driving a car, and he was in line to become an assistant manager of a nightclub. And I reposted that earlier last year, and she came back to me and said, Alan, you can't tell time. I said, what? And she said, that was 2 years ago. He's now 21, and he is the assistant manager in that nightclub.
Fantastic.
That sort of feedback, when I'm getting that from clients all the time and I'm seeing it change in their lives, and when you see grown men get on a Facebook Live to just talk to their people in their network, and they start to cry about and talking about the impact the profiling has had in their families. That's the stuff that keeps energizing me because I know that I'm leaving something behind which is really going to be around for a long time.
Powerful. Tell us about a recent project, one of many. Tell us a recent project or achievement that you're particularly proud of, Alan.
Well, one of the ones I'm working on at the moment, it hasn't completed yet. I've had a lot of interest from Newcastle University because one of the biggest issues was, yes, the micro expressions, the body language, the language we use and the paralanguage, they've all been empirically proven, by academia, etc., for decades. But facial features are the one thing that nobody's really grasped at all. So the end result is that with that, now we're talking about getting the empirical testing done on it. If that happens, that puts it right up there. The only other profiling system that will challenge it will be the psychologist's Big Five. It leaves everything else for dead. But because of that work there and in the Campfire Project in my business, the United Nations has 17 what they call Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes.
The Campfire Project has ticked 5 of those, and my business has ticked 7. Most businesses are lucky to get 3.
Fantastic. Right.
Uh,
What advice, speaking of your 3 sons, a 20-year-old comes to you, might be your son, nephew, niece, a friend of the family, and says, Alan, I've just left school or university, and I'm not sure what I should do with myself. What advice would you give them? What would you tell them to do?
Well, if they've come to me because I look at people's personality profiles and we know from their personality what things they would love doing. So I can direct them on what careers, etc. But the first thing is it's always making sure that they know what it is, the things that they excite them, that they enjoy doing, and then seeing how that aligns to a job. So forgetting about what other people have told them, like you should become an accountant because you'll make a fortune. Yes, you'll probably need to make a fortune to pay for your medical bills because you'll feel depressed all the way through your career. And so it's making sure that they know the right thing. But I'll always say to them, make sure you've got good guides around you. Find those people that you trust that will sit without criticism, without judging or telling you what you should and shouldn't do, but be that sounding board that you work through things through. But always listen to everybody, but take in everything, work out what works for you, let go what doesn't work for you, put your own flavor on it, but always make sure that you add your style to it and reject anything that doesn't fit you, no matter who's telling you that. So it's having and knowing your own mind.
Nice thoughts. Good wisdom there, Alan. I would add to that travel, and the more important one, guys, whatever you find, if you're finding something you do, if you want to save a lot of time and energy, get a mentor. And like Alan or myself, and you'll shave years off the journey. They've been there and done what they're well down the track where you are, and they can help you a lot, right? And in many cases, cost you nothing, only a virtual cup of coffee. So don't be frightened to reach out. Even like Alan, don't be frightened to reach out. Have a virtual cup. It costs you nothing, guys. Think about
Exactly.
it. Nothing for a virtual cup of coffee, and find out what you don't know. And then that's a lot, guys. Trust me when I tell you that. Alan, looking ahead, you're only at base camp. You're only a young man. Looking ahead, what are your goals and aspirations for the future? What are you going to be up to?
Well, my main goal at the moment is to create and train my competition. There's 8 billion people on the planet. There's no way I can get to all of those. But to find people, anybody who comes to me wants to do a master course, they virtually have to pass an interview. If they've come to me because they want to manipulate people, they won't even get through the door. If they've come to me because they just want to make money, etc., yeah, I'll work with them. But if I've only got a certain amount of time and there's somebody else who wants to go out and help other people and grow their business through helping other people, they'll get my support all the time. And so I'm running a program at the moment, selecting some of the really best people that become my inner circle. So everything new that I'm creating, they get to trial it. I get to work with them to make sure it works in their business. That then becomes the case studies I take back to the university for further testing to get this into MBAs and other such courses. Because if anybody can read somebody else, you're well ahead in building stronger relationships. And as they say, no matter how good your products and services are, if you can't build a relationship, you're never going to show people how good you are. So relationships come first.
I was talking to you earlier about we're learning all the time, and one I come across the other day, like wisdom. You'll know this one. I didn't know about it. You'll know it. It was about listening, and it said most people listen so they can get ready to say what they want to say.
That's it.
They don't listen to listen, right?
Exactly. There's two conversations going in a person's head all the time. That's why I say most of us are schizophrenic when we're having a conversation, because one thing is that while we're talking, we're thinking about what we're saying. And then when we stop talking, the other person's talking, we're thinking about how we're going to respond to that. What's the next thing? So we don't truly listen to them. To just slow down, take it all in. As I say to everybody, you've got 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. But when you use your mouth, ask every possible question you can. Then you can ask one more. And when people say, how can I ask one more question if I've asked every question I can think of? Last one's easy. From what you've been telling me, this is what I understood. Have I got it right? If the person says yes, great, because you know that they know you've been listening. If they say no, that's even better, because now you're into a conversation, because now they're talking to you and explaining to you. You're no longer asking questions, but they're now educating you. And in that, they even know you're listening even more, and that relationship becomes stronger again.
Play that several times, people. If you're watching this podcast, replay that, because it's so. And I've only just learnt it, and I'm 77, right? I'm a good talker. I'm not a great listener, but one of the things I used to always tell people, that one of my mantras was, some of the best ideas come out of the mouths of idiots. So listen to. I've made millions, guys. I've had 5 multi-million-dollar businesses, and everyone came out of someone below me, right? And I listened to what they said, went and looked at if it was achievable, and then I went on to do it. The difference was I took action. Action gets traction.
Exactly. Right? So it's very much a case of when people ask me if I'm a teacher, I go, yes, I'm a part-time teacher, but I'm a full-time learner. I can't teach anybody unless I'm learning all the way through, learning from them, learning their style, learning to understand them. Never stop learning.
Like a tree, you're either growing or you're dying. Which one are you? You know. Tell it, what's the best way our listeners and people watching this wonderful podcast, Alan, how can they get in touch with you? What's the most easiest way of the lot? Tell us what's the easy way to get in touch with you.
Very easiest way is go to my website, which is my name, @AlanStephens.com.au.
Nice.
And you're there, it'll take you to everything else from there.
Yeah. And guys, This is like talking to a friend, as you've seen. 15 minutes of fame. I want you to think about this for a minute. A TV commercial would set you back about $20,000. And what happens? It comes on, people jump up, go to the fridge, grab a beer, grab a hot dog, or go to the toilet and miss the whole darn thing. You want to do 10 radio spots around Newcastle? That's cool. Do that. Guess what? They invariably play them at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning when people are asleep. Come on, 15 minutes of fame. And apart from you promoting it, what we'll do for you, we'll turn the whole thing into a mini movie all about you. And it goes on Reddit, Quora, LinkedIn, Facebook, our Facebook group, YouTube, and our new platform, School, potentially putting you in front of hundreds of prospects. And of course, you do the same your end on a regular basis because this content is evergreen. It's about you and your life. So don't forget that, guys. Utilize it. Right, Alan, before we wrap it up, we can't let you go. You've told me a lot. I know a lot more about you than what I already knew. But tell us a fun fact about yourself that most people do not know.
Oh, I think we've covered most of the things. As I said, my whole focus is really on the work that I do, the people I connect with. Fun thing is, well, I like spending a lot of time on my own, going out bush and learning while I'm out there. I used to run and swim a lot, but the body's been knocked around a fair bit from that. But yeah, it's more about taking care of myself these days. That's a fun thing. Waking up in the morning and knowing that the body hasn't fallen to pieces overnight, so to speak, because I pushed myself too much the day before.
Lovely. Big question for you. Can you throw a boomerang yet?
No, and I can't. A boomerang, it might come back and I probably won't catch it very well and therefore get hit. But I can't play a didge either. Something that I really haven't taken the time out to do.
I came from Adelaide, and funny, I don't know why. In Adelaide, could be close to Port Pirie, Whaler. They come on down. We used to see a lot of Aborigines. I was stupid enough when I was younger. I used to go to the boxing and box the Aborigines. And I'll tell you, from my experience, you hit them in the head, nothing happens. Right? You have to hit them in the body.
They're tough.
Yeah, pretty tough. You're right, Alan. You've been an awesome guest. Thank you for being on the show. Any last words for our guests?
No, I think we've covered everything there and that, but just remember, be kind to yourself and be kind to others.
Thank you very much, Alan.